Hello, fellow Master Brewers. Today I am joined by a special guest and personal friend of mine, Jeff Gunn from IDD. He's the president and CEO, and trying to do something a little bit different this month. One of the things I think Jeff kind of brought to my attention, he said, "Hey, Kris, we're part of the Master Brewers. We talk a lot about brewers and breweries, but what about the allied industries?" And he got me thinking. And I said, yeah, absolutely. It's a big part. I think it's about a third of our membership. And if there wasn't for the allied industries, we wouldn't have beer. We wouldn't have breweries. And I think it's a very much important part of our district. And then for those that watched last month, I talked a bit about, we had a milestone in the organization where we reached 5,000 members. And I think that's a great achievement. Pretty much doubled our membership in the last 10 years. And while that seems really good and something we should be proud of, I think we have a lot of work to do yet. When we think about the number of breweries, we're approaching 8,000 breweries. And if we had one master brewer member for every brewery, the organization would be 8,000 strong. So Jeff and I started talking a little bit, and I think the allied industry really has a unique perspective, being able to touch a lot of different breweries, big brewers, small brewers, and really just want to have a little bit of conversation about how you think the allied industries, why is Master Brewers important to you and your organization and your career, and maybe a little bit on that, and then how do you think the allied industries can play a role in helping get the word out on everything that's available to them through the Master Brewers.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Kris. I think it's a good perspective to look at what the smaller suppliers can do. I mean, the big boys have always been there. The Crones, the KHSs, the big malt and malted barley suppliers, the hop suppliers, they've always had a big play in the MBAA. Smaller equipment suppliers are the ones that I'm particularly interested in, being 30 years as my own company, and then prior to that with a big company, which was the APV group. We saw back in the 70s when I first came here and joined the MBAA, we were running big exhibitions. It was the leader of the brewing industry, which was ostensibly large breweries, of which there were only about 75, I think, in those days. But nowadays we're running, as you say, close to 8,000 breweries nationally, and the small suppliers have grown exponentially as well, that are supplying the craft brewers. And I think it's a shame that although some of the craft brewers have joined the MBAA, there should be an awful lot more, because they have a hell of a technical base on which to pull from, which they don't. But those that do could also do with a lot more information coming from the likes of the suppliers. The suppliers are really the innovators of what happens to brewing equipment, and obviously that's where I've always tried to put my emphasis, is on coming up with ideas that come from the big industry of brewing and packaging process within the beverage industries, trying to bring some of those technologies down to the craft brewing level. And again, I like to have a conversation, or try and get you now as president of the operation to actually get more of the industrial side of the supplier industry involved in the MBAA, which I hope would encourage more craft brewers to join the MBAA.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I'm not sure every time when vendors and suppliers go visit breweries, and especially craft breweries, because there's a lot more of them popping up nowadays, if that's always something that they think of to talk about. And just me going out to some small local craft breweries and talk about Master Brewers, I'm surprised at how many people haven't heard of the Master Brewers. Yeah. And is that something that you find as well as you make your visits and make your rounds?
Well, another reason for contacting you on it. Now you're a Southern California boy like me for the for the last 30 odd years. When you get into Ventura County, where I am, which is the northern part of Los Angeles, I don't suppose there's more than a dozen guys up there that have even heard of the MBAA, let alone joined the MBAA. It's getting better, but there's a lot of opportunity there for MBAA membership, both on the supplier side and on the brewery side.
Talked a lot about recently is as we've kind of retooled the organization and refocused our efforts on making sure we're reaching out to the membership and hearing about what's important on the ground floor in the breweries with suppliers, with the industry, is that there's no better way to really understand that unless you go out and ask. And one thing that's really unique about the Master Brewers is the fact we have districts, and that having very strong districts that are active and where we can reach the membership, I think is a great opportunity. The other thing I know it's worked out very well is joint technical conferences. I know District Michigan does one every year. I'm sure there's other ones, and forgive me if I'm not calling your district out, but I know that there's those opportunities as well where they reach out to the guilds and the Master Brewers. So I think that's something that as an organization we should look out and find those opportunities.
Yeah, I think if we can get membership up from the supplier side, which I think would then help suppliers getting brewers involved as well. And there's an awful lot of brewers that still aren't in the MBAA, which they can draw on that fabulous technical library that exists within the MBAA over the years,
right,
that I've drawn on many times, to be honest.
Just the idea of bringing suppliers together and then having those conversations. We do that a bit at the annual conferences, but more ad hoc, leveraging online webinars, or even going out to districts and getting like-minded or different-minded people to talk about a topic, a technical topic.
When you bring 3 or 4 suppliers within that realm, and then have them set up like you do at the national conference, where you set up a round table chat on the subject. It really does bring about a lot of technical expertise, brings them together, and gets a lot of good questions. I mean, the last time I was involved in one like that was on mash filter brewing, was over in Jacksonville, Florida, about 3 or 4
you
years
and I
ago.
both sat on that.
We both sat on that
That's right.
then, So that I'd like to see at district level.
Yeah, no, I think that's something we'll definitely take into consideration.
Yeah.
So one last question. So actually 2. First, how long have you been a member of the Master Brewers?
1979, I believe, maybe 1980. I came here in 78 to Columbus, Ohio, to the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. That was my first time I spent any time in the States. I'd been over here on visits, but moved to Southern California in 79. I think within a year I joined the MBAA after that.
Why do you choose to be a member of the Master
Why
Brewers?
do I choose to be a member? Well, one, the technical database, and the fact that it has a technical aspect to it over a lot of the other organizations. Why do I want to be in the MBAA? I've always been in the brewing industry for 56 years. So it's just a natural progression of things for me to be in an organization that represents our industry. It's an industry that has fed me for my working life. So that's what I look to.
Great. Well, thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate the time, and
thank you for inviting me down.
And appreciate your insights. Please chime in and let us know, if you have ideas on how the allied industries can really help make a difference for the Master Brewers going forward. And appreciate everything you've done in your career, and wish you the best of luck in your efforts.
Thank you.
Thanks.